This video is not intended for children.
Hello everyone, our topic this week was requested by the Irish Viking. We'll be going over Cayde-6 from the Destiny franchise.
So, to know Cayde, we need to go over just a little bit of world setup. Cayde-6 was an EXO, a Guardian, and the Hunter Vanguard. And for those who don't have any idea what any of that means, here we go! In Destiny, there are 3 playable races. Humans, duh. Awoken, space humans plus. And then there's the EXO. EXOs are robots. EXO is the common shortened term for exomind, and basically they are powerful, versatile robots that have had real human consciousnesses uploaded into them. All known EXOs were created by having a real person's mind digitized and uploaded into an artificial combat chassis. Minus having an actual fleshy brain, they are literally human brains in a robot body. There are a few problems with the uploading process though, and most early EXOs suffered heavily from dissociative exomind rejection, or DER, which we'll be calling DER for the rest of this video because DER is funny to say, which was a mental disorder caused by the very organic human brain, or the program that might as well have been said brain, violently rejecting the reality of being housed in a fully artificial body. DER was so serious that it often proved fatal, so the EXO's creators had to come up with a way to handle this situation. The DER problem was never resolved, but they did come up with 2 main ways to reduce the likelihood of DER manifestation.
First, and most disturbingly, was the process of rebooting the mind, erasing the memories of the EXO prior to their upload into the EXO frame. While unbelievably creepy and ripe for abuse, the process did stabilize most EXOs right from the get-go. With most or all of their memories of having an organic body being gone, the mind had a much easier time acclimating to its new synthetic body. As a bonus that adds to the terror, the rebooting process could be repeated, in order to stave off manifesting DER symptoms, or because the EXO in question knew too much, and we don't care what anyone says, you will never convince us that that did not happen. Though repeated reboots could eventually negatively affect the EXO in question, reducing their ability to form or retain new memories at all. It was theorized that 20 or so reboots was probably the upper limit if the EXO in question was to remain a useful being. This is why many of the EXOs encountered in the games have numbers attached to them, signifying the number of times their consciousness has been rebooted. Ergo, Cayde-6 has presumably been rebooted 6 times. This is also likely why Banshee44, a weapons vendor in the game, has a notoriously poor memory, as he's more than doubled the maximum recommended reboots by this point. The other method of staving off DER manifestation was to build the capacity for normal biological activities into the EXOs, as, while completely unnecessary for the synthetic body, the act of doing things like eating, drinking, or desiring sex helped normalize the brain's reaction to this new condition. This is why Cayde can be seen drinking in promo cutscenes, and before you ask, no, there is no indication that these combat robots were outfitted with the appropriate equipment for all of these urges.
The Destiny games take place in the far-flung future after humanity had a golden age of technological advancement followed by a massive collapse, after which humanity was almost completely wiped out. The games take place hundreds of years afterwards, with the shattered remnants of humanity having gathered together in a single city as the best means of survival. Chiefest among the protectors of the last city are the Guardians, of which both you, the player, and Cayde-6 are members. During the collapse of Golden Age humanity, a magic space machine orb called the Traveler spent most of its strength protecting Earth from total annihilation. And, with the last of its strength, sent out presumably tens of thousands of ghosts before going into stasis for the next few hundred years. Ghosts are smaller, fist-sized magic space machines that have one purpose: to find creatures capable of wielding the light, broadly speaking one of 2 kinds of space magic in Destiny, the other being the darkness, and then to use that light to keep them alive, preferably forever. These light-wielding creatures are known in Destiny's modern day as Guardians. To the best of our knowledge, a Guardian is always someone who's died first, so ghosts scour the solar system for corpses matching their criteria, and when they find one that is suitable, resurrect it, turning them into a Guardian. This is even possible with EXOs, for reasons we could only theorize about. A Guardian is a warrior who, with their ghost at their side, the ghost bonds to the Guardian they raise, is nearly immortal, and has the power to wield the light in a variety of ways. Guardians come in 3 broad categories: Titans, Warlocks, and Hunters. Titans are the muscle, heavy hitters who use the light for defense or heavy-hitting damage. Warlocks take the most directly magical approach, having more mystical and generally longer range light powers at their disposal. Hunters are the mid-range units, with short and long-range light powers, and lean toward being more agile than either of the other 2 classes. Each of these 3 classes work together to protect the last city under the leadership of the Vanguard, a trio of guardians, one from each class, who are particularly skilled, tenacious, etc. Cayde-6 was the Hunter Vanguard, leader and coordinator of his fellow hunters.
Biological guardians, when first awoken by their ghost, come to life with no memory of their past. They're blank slates, for good or for ill. But EXOs are a little different. All non-Guardian EXOs have lost most of their memories from before the collapse. The methods to create EXOs has been lost to time, so all currently existing EXOs are old. Though Guardian EXOs, like Cayde, may not have been operational for the entire time, since they had to, die. The same is true of Guardian EXOs, but because of that, uniquely among Guardians, they do still retain some of their pre-Guardian resurrection memories. Cayde is the only EXO we have any information of substance on, but based upon what we know of him, what memories the EXOs retain are spotty at best. It's worth noting that in his retelling of what he recalls of his past, Cayde openly admits as he tells the stories that, no, that part wasn't right, it was actually like this. So his memories aren't 100% reliable, but they are true to him as far as he knows, so this is the story as he tells it.
Before being resurrected as a Guardian, and indeed before becoming an EXO, way back somewhere in the Golden Age era, Cayde was some sort of gun for hire, and he was also in a lot of debt. Considering post-Guardian him has a weakness for gambling, we imagine this is how human him racked up that mountain of debt as well. After successfully performing a job for the scientist who was developing EXOs, Cayde was given the option to come work for said scientist, become an EXO, and as payment, the scientist, who was the head of a multi-planetary corporation, would pay off all of Cayde's debts. It's unknown whether the contract was to work for the scientist as an EXO gun for hire / bodyguard, or if this was early enough into the EXO development process that the scientist simply needed subjects willing to upload their brain into robot bodies. But either way, Cayde took the offer. He has a few more memories of hunting dangerous monsters as an EXO and working as an EXO security for a different but hot scientist who never gave him the time of day. But his final 2 memories are the most interesting. First, he remembers what is almost certainly the moment of his death. He describes being alone on a world where the sky has been torn open and the shadows boiled around him before consuming him entirely except for his ability to watch what happened next. The next memory is interesting because Cayde knows specifically that it is not his memory. The memory is one of awakening to look at the cold space between something, either his own circuitry or perhaps even between galaxies, feeling voices within him, and at the center of it all, a core self, a true self, and that true self asks him a question. Do you want to know what happens next?
The memory doesn't provide any answers to that question, and Cayde's clear memories don't begin until presumably hundreds of years later when he's revived by his ghost, Sundance, named both for its effervescent nature and presumably as an homage to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Cayde-6 most definitely gives off that gunslinger vibe. When he awoke, the combination of knowing nothing about who or what or how he was, combined with suddenly gaining all of that information as some combination of the light and his circuits kicked in, topped off with little Sundance chattering excitedly in his face, proved far too much for Cayde, and he blindly fled away from the scene at breakneck speed. Which is what he promptly did. Running terrified from the little floating space ball telling him he was going the wrong way, Cayde ended up running straight off of a cliff and falling to his death, only to be resurrected again by Sundance, as ghosts are wont to do. This second time, he took the process better, and Cayde's legend truly started as he bonded with his poor little ghost. We don't know exactly when Cayde was raised as a Guardian, but we know he's a little older than 126 by the time of the games, meaning he was around to protect the city when it was still being put together. He was by no means there for its founding, but he was around early enough that Guardians still made forays into the wilds, looking for people to guide safely to the city, or scatter around just foraging for materials that could be salvaged to benefit the city, which by the time of the games seems predominantly self-sufficient.
Using the memories of a wife and son that Cayde was never even certain were real, Cayde gave himself something to work toward, an example he had to set. Sure, maybe they weren't real, maybe those memories were fabricated entirely. But so what if they were? Would the family he'd once had be proud of what he'd done? With those ideals to light his way, Cayde spent those early years making a name for himself, falling in with other like-minded guardians, striking fear into their foes and protecting their people. At some point, the Hunter Vanguard seat had sat open for a couple years. Hunters as a group are, in the lore, notorious loners and scouts. They don't like to sit behind the city walls and handle logistics, preferring to leave the boring stuff to literally anyone else. And Cayde and his buddies were no different. So when it was announced that the Hunters would have to decide for themselves who'd be the next Vanguard, Cayde and one of his closest friends, a fellow hunter named Andal Brask, made a bet. There was an alien mercenary, tm&m, causing loads of trouble at the time, and they had a personal beef with him besides. So, after a night of drinking, Cayde couldn't get drunk, but he's known for brash behavior anyway, they made a bet. The Vanguard Dare. Whoever took tm&m out first would get to keep going on their merry way, and the loser had to take the dreaded Vanguard seat. Cayde won, seemingly killing tm&m, and everyone celebrated Andal's promotion. But as anyone who's played the games might know, tm&m survived. It's just kind of his thing. Even in the games, you have to kill him a few times before it sticks. It's really... So a few years later, while out on patrol, tm&m, apparently back from the dead, slew Andal, vacating the Hunter Vanguard seat once more. In furious vengeance, Cayde tracked tm&m down and killed him again, putting holes through many of his vital organs before tm&m's crew managed to drag him off, keeping Cayde from completing the job in truth. Though for a time the city was once again certain tm&m was dead, he wasn't. Afterward, Cayde-6 took up the mantle of Hunter Vanguard in Andal's stead in order to honor his memory, and also to atone, since Cayde blames himself for not killing tm&m properly, a remorse he never really seemed to get over.
Cayde has filled the Hunter Vanguard seat ever since, though the longer he wore the mantle, the more he seemed to chafe at it. He would do whatever was required of him, and the longer he served, the more he came to understand the value of what the Vanguard do, but it didn't change the fact that he still itched to be out there in the wild, taking the fight to the enemy, rather than sitting behind the walls, coordinating Vanguard efforts, or, most dreadfully, sitting in on meetings with the city's head of state. Cayde spent the first half of Destiny 1 doing this same whole lot of nothing noteworthy, just like the rest of the Vanguard, watching wistfully as the players sent out on dangerous missions to protect humanity. Until the Taken King DLC. During the Taken King, a powerful alien warlord, the Taken King, arrives in the solar system, threatening all life with his power and weaponry, even going so far as to completely decimate most of the military forces of the Guardians' allies. What's more, the defenses of the Taken King's ship were nearly impenetrable. Nearly. Which is where Cayde came in. Keeping things just between the player and himself, as he believed the rest of the Vanguard would likely have disapproved of this course of action, Cayde worked with the player to steal a stealth device from a Golden Age war AI, mount it to a ship belonging to Eris, one of their allies. The ship in question had specific properties making it more suitable for the mission than, say, the player's ship or Cayde's, and sent the player onto the Taken King's ship using the ghetto stealth vessel in order to establish a beachhead. The plan succeeded, opening a doorway to eventual victory for the Guardians. However, Eris's ship was destroyed in the process. So far, she has yet to entirely forgive Cayde for stealing and then destroying her ship.
2 years later, we get to the events of Destiny 2. A different fleet of different aliens arrived with the intent of crushing the Guardians once and for all. In a fantastic blitzkrieg-style maneuver, the bad guys flew a host of ships into the city and cut the Guardians off from the Traveler, which was the source of their powers of light, meaning that the Guardians quickly went from just dealing with a surprise attack to fending off a surprise attack without any superpowers and without the ability to be resurrected, abilities they had all come to take for granted. The battle quickly went south, numerous Guardians died a final death, civilians were killed, and defenses were crushed. Most people scattered to the winds.
For Cayde's part, during the battle he determined the best course of action would be to cut off the head of the snake, a plan he'd had to abandon once his powers were lost. He knew he wouldn't survive a frontal assault. However, he still believed that hunting down the alien's leader was the ultimate solution, so Cayde traveled to another planet to steal a teleporter. with the plan of teleporting in, lack of powers be damned, and assassinating the alien leader. The player rescues Cayde from some teleporter-based shenanigans, and then stops this course of action by letting Cayde know that the aliens had a weapon capable of destroying the sun at the ready, pointed at the sun, meaning that if the leader died, so did the sun, and resultantly, everything else. Combining that and the fact that the Vanguard commander specifically said he needed Cayde.
Wait, Zavala said he needs me? As in you heard those exact words coming out of Zavala's mouth?
Yes, we did.
Please tell me you recorded it.
And he held off on his plans. The final plan still incorporated the idea, though. The player, the only Guardian to have regained their powers of light, would assault the weapon threatening the sun. Once it was neutralized, the Vanguard and the rest of the Guardians would make an assault on the aliens, killing their leader and restoring their connection to the light. In the end, the Vanguard, Cayde included, cleared the way to the alien leader, but without their powers, the player had to finish the job. The player succeeded, defeating the alien leader. The Traveler even awoke from its long slumber, restoring the power of light to each of the Guardians. Obligatory fuck.
But once everyone had their abilities restored, it was game on once more. Cayde began taking a more active role in the field, they were low on Guardians, and he'd been proven right by the alien attack on their home. The Vanguard couldn't just sit and direct things from behind walls, they had to be proactive. So, over the next few months or so, Cayde began organizing strikes against high-value targets, working alongside the Guardians' allies, and at some point he helped their allies bring in a band of particularly nasty pirates, locking them away in the Prison of Elders, their allies' maximum security prison. Later, the prison sent out a distress call, and both the player and Cayde answer the call. A massive prison break was underway. What they would learn too late is that the pirates were at the heart of it, with Cayde arriving on their prison doorstep before anyone else, alone. Though he fought valiantly, the pirate band killed Sundance, Cayde's ghost, and they waited to do it until he was already weak, near the need for a resurrection. Only without a ghost, a Guardian is just as mortal as anyone else. Though he was quippy to the end, Cayde-6 died his final death in the bowels of that prison, in the arms of the player, who arrived just in time to hear his final words. Words of comfort.
You tell Zavala and Ikora, the Vanguard is the best bet I ever lost.
Though most would say it was before his time, he seemed at peace. The player would go on to honor Cayde's memory, slaying each of the pirates in turn until he got to their leader, a rogue prince, who the player slew, preventing the release of a horrible alien monstrosity in the process. Cayde-6 would have approved.
And that's the story of Cayde-6, quick-witted gunslinger extraordinaire from the Destiny franchise. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and maybe share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see us do in the future, do like the Irish Viking, and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore, let's play, or other, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more like it, hit that subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, click the link on the left.
Thank you to all of our patrons for making these videos possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.